Welcome back to Midco Sports tonight. It's time for Water Cooler Talk, sponsored by Grand Falls Casino and Golf Resort. Kelly Stewart joined as usual on Mondays by our expert analyst, Brad Newitt. And Brad, it is crunch time in the Summit League, the last week of the regular season, a lot on the line, but would players and fans have it any other way?
Of course not. And we've got the rivalry games coming up this week between USD and SDSU with Summit League titles on the line for both the men and the women.
Yeah, that's exciting. We will touch on that, but let's start on the women's side with the other teams. Obviously, USD, SDSU, the 1 and 2 seeds no matter what. But are there any other teams that are really battling for maybe a better seeding position than they might have?
Well, Denver on the women's side is a team that still has an outside chance to get the 3 seed over Western Illinois. Now, everything's got to go their way. I think it's a pretty outside chance, but those two teams do play each other the last game.
Oh, well, that's very exciting. All right, moving on to the big game on Wednesday. USD and SDSU down in Vermillion. Going to be exciting. USD coming in at 13-0 as the home team. SDSU, that lone blemish, of course, to USD back on January 25th. So you look at these teams. It's been a month since they've played. How have they each changed and developed or grown since that last matchup? Start with the Jacks.
Well, first of all, I think SDSU's probably got a little bit more rhythm to their lineup now. They lost Maya Sellen for a number of games. She's back playing for them and scoring well. I think that's really important for SDSU to get her back in the fold as a third scorer to go along with Miller and Giebert. For USD, they're just a team that's just been rolling. They've won 17 games in a row. So for them, just keep doing what you've been doing. The recipe is working. Don't change a thing if you're the Lady Coyotes.
Yeah, pretty much fine-tuning. Also, I feel like for SDSU, Ellie Thompson has been playing very well ever since that loss to USD. And now that they have that inside presence there, it seems to be opening things up on the outside, and they are scoring it really well. But USD, like you said, 17 games in a row is absolutely unreal. So you look at this game. Obviously, you got the big players on each side. You got Macy Miller, Maddie Giebert, you touched on them, and then on USD, Allison Arns, Kira Duffy. But what do you think is going to be the main key in this one?
Well, as I look back to the first game, first of all, South Dakota was terrific defensively. They held a South Dakota State team that averages 85 points a game to just 61. If South Dakota can do that again, I really like their chances. I think a lot of that went to how well they turned South Dakota State over. South Dakota was +6 in turnovers in that game. That's 6 more possessions they had trying to score, and if that happens, it's going to be really tough for the Jacks to get a win.
Yeah, very true. Plus, in Vermillion, the Sanford Coyote Sports Center, never an easy place to play. But let's talk about the seeding. I discussed it before, but USD 13-0 going into this one, SDSU 12-1. Assuming SDSU beats Fort Wayne on Saturday, if USD wins, obviously they're the number 1 seed. If SDSU wins, both teams are 13-1. How does that tiebreaker work out?
That is a crazy tiebreaker because then they've split head-to-head.
Yeah.
And there's no other matchups you can go down into the Summit League and say, oh, well, who beat who? It's just a complete tie at that point. And so what the Summit League has in place, you go to the team's RPI. And so it depends on what your RPI is. That's what would determine who would be the regular season champ. And then really the number 1 seed. That's what's important. Right now, South Dakota State would have that nod on the women's side. And it's really because they played a stronger non-conference schedule and how they performed in that.
Yeah, had some good wins. I mean, played Louisville very close, and then the win over the Big 12's Oklahoma. USD playing a tough schedule as well, but yeah, we shall see on Wednesday. Moving on to the men. Their game's on Thursday up in Frost Arena. A lot riding on this one as well. We wouldn't have it any other way. But what does this game mean for each of these teams? Start with SDSU.
Well, for SDSU, first of all, they have a great home court winning streak. 19 games in a row. That's actually the nation's longest home court winning streak now. So they've got that, first of all, riding on things. They've played so well at home. They don't want to let that slip. But South Dakota State, USD, they both control their own destiny. For South Dakota State, they could clinch the number 1 seed. They know they would have that for sure with a win. For South Dakota, they're trying to move into a tie with South Dakota State. A loss there would help for South Dakota State to move back towards them. But then USD would have the tiebreaker because they would have swept SDSU. So really whoever wins this game gets the number 1 seed. As far as the outright conference title, only SDSU could clinch that, though.
All right, so pretty important game, to say the least. All right, well, the go-to guys on each team, of course, Dom and Mooney. You expect them to play well. But if you had to pick a person that needs to be the catalyst, the difference maker in the game, who would it be? Start with SDSU.
Well, for SDSU, to me, it's David Jenkins Jr. He's their electric scoring guard, and he did not have a good game the first time these two teams played down in Vermillion. Really struggled shooting the ball from the three-point line. SDSU, when they're playing at their best, they really need that 1-2 punch. We know Dom's going to get his, but they need a guy like David Jenkins Jr. to come through with a big game. to be in that 15 to 20 point range for them. Now for USD, I really think Tyler Hagedorn's their guy. He's kind of their second scorer. And when he is really playing well to go along with Matt Mooney, that's when USD is really at their best offensively. And so I do think watching those kind of secondary scores is going to be big on Thursday night.
Yeah, that could be huge. Well, we already talked about the seeding, a lot going into that. But if there are any other games that we should be paying attention to seeding-wise around the Summit League, what would they be?
Well, Fort Wayne and Denver are still jostling for that 3 and 4 spot. Now, they both have tough games. Denver has to go to Western Illinois. Fort Wayne hosts South Dakota State in their last game. They're both tied at 7 and 6. And then below that, seeds 5, 6, 7 still have a ton to sort out there.
Yes.
As you look at teams like Oral Roberts, Denver, Omaha, North Dakota State, those teams are all ones that are really jostling too to try to figure things out.
All right, well, we are so excited for Wednesday and Thursday. Again, Brad, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate your info.
You betcha.
All right, coming up after the break, we'll send it up to North Dakota. Jody Norstead has the North Dakota High School recap when we come back.